Hi everyone, thanks for coming to today's webinar where we're going to be talking about adjectives. I just asked for today that if you have any questions to save them until the end, and that way we'll get everything handled at one time. So we're going to get started. To start things off, I just want to introduce myself. Some of you may know me, others may not. I'm Megan. I'm one of the English instructors with Penn Foster High School, and I've been with Penn Foster since about 2006. If you ever need to get in touch with me, there are several ways you can do so. You can call or email me, but you can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, and the Penn Foster community. For Facebook and the community, all you have to do is search for my name, and I should pop up. And I strongly encourage you to get involved with the community if you're not. It's a great place to meet your peers, get involved with your faculty, and get information about the courses that you're working on. And like I start most of the webinars, actually all of them, we talk about why English is important. It's a subject where information builds on itself, so it's important to have a good understanding of the basics, like things like parts of speech, like an adjective. And this is going to help with more challenging concepts you'll encounter down the road. So to get things kicked off, we're going to start with a video about why English is important. Okay, so now that we have that covered, let's get started. Like all of your lessons with Penn Foster and all the webinars you're going to attend, they're going to be learning objectives. So upon the completion of this webinar, you're going to be able to know how to know what an adjective is. You're going to know what adjectives tell us, know the types of adjectives, and know the degrees of comparison as well. I like to start my webinars off with a video that explains the topic we're going to be discussing. You'll notice that most of the time they're going to be videos that involve music. For me, if something's set to music and if it's catchy, I'm going to remember it better, so that's why I try to include things like this to get us started with the topic. So here's a short video on adjectives.
Ladies and gentlemen, adjectives are words. Adjectives. Words that describe lines, words that you may know. They can be used in many descriptive words. Listen up. Talking about size, like tiny, opinion, like rise, feel like happy, sad, or otherwise. Age, like empty, color, like brown. Adjectives are words that describe lines outside, like tiny, opinion, like rise, feel like happy, sad, or otherwise. Age, like empty, color, like brown. Adjectives are words that describe lines. Sometimes you just need more info. You need words to keep descriptions from being simple. And then asking the reasoning. Think of words as foods and adjectives, they would be the seasoning. One time I had a little puppy, 6-month-old collie by the name of Lucky. Every day we was running frolic all playfully till I lost my grip on the leash. She got away from me. Made signs to put up around the neighborhood, hoping someone saw her and she wouldn't stay away for good. Without no describing words, I don't think I would have had a chance to find and live outside like tiny, up in like wise, feel like happy, sad, or otherwise. Like antique, color like brown. Adjectives are words that describe lives outside like tiny, up in like wise, feel like happy, sad, or otherwise. Like antique, color like brown. Adjectives are words that describe lives. Something you need to know before you write it down. Adjectives will more than likely come before a noun. Big bad wolf, big and bad adjectives. Throw them in the pot, no artificial additives. Here my advice and take this. Master the basics and watch your grades rise like cake mix. Any good recipe, got those in the mixture. And those are descriptors, and now you get the picture. Last thing I'll add, which is definitely worth mentioning. Adjectives usually describe intensity. Add an ER and EST. Now it's nicer, or the nicest thing that I've ever seen. Brighter than a bright light, that will be the brightest. Grammar is free, but adjectives are priceless. Thank you for listening, and remember this. If you enjoy something, be sure you can describe it. Size like tiny, up in like rise. Feel like happy, sad, or otherwise. Like antique, color like brown. Adjectives are words that describe lives outside like tiny, up in like rise. Feel like happy, sad, or otherwise. Like antique, color like brown. Adjectives are words that describe lives. Adjectives are words.
Okay, so that gives us a pretty good overview of what we're going to be discussing today, and I hope it helps with remembering what adjectives are as well. So moving right along, we're going to discuss what are adjectives. It's a word that describes a noun or a pronoun, and they make our conversations more colorful and interesting. We're going to keep with the dog theme like it was brought up in the video there. So we're going to take a look at two dogs to see why adjectives are important. The first one that we see here, he's pretty nondescript. He's definitely just an icon. Not really much you can say about him. Maybe the most you want to say is the dog sat. It doesn't give a lot of details, doesn't let us know more about the dog. So it's kind of like adjectives, not writing without adjectives or speaking without adjectives is kind of like looking at a picture of a dog like this. Very plain, nondescriptive, not colorful. So you want to add more to it. So that brings us to this little guy. So if we take a look at this dog, the picture has a lot more detail and gives us more to work with. So if we're going to try to describe this dog, we could say the small brown dog relaxed as he waited for his chatty owner to finish talking. So you can see how using adjectives add more flavor and more color to our speaking and writing. So you do want to use them whenever you can. So now that we know what an adjective is, we need to know what they tell us. Adjectives tell us what kind. So in this case, what kind of coffee? We'd have hot and steaming coffee. They tell us which one. In this case, it would be which person? The person wearing headphones. They tell us how much, and this would be, in this case, a little paint. And they also tell us how many, and in this case, it would be 3 bowls. In addition to this, adjectives also tell us color. So these would be green limes, size, so we've got small tomatoes, and shape. And we could use shape to describe the star-shaped pattern that's the kernels make up inside the pomegranate. Okay, since now we know what an adjective is and what they tell us, like most parts of speech, there's different types of adjectives. So first up, we're going to talk about common and proper adjectives. Common adjectives give a general description, like the green house, the small dog, the broken glass. Proper adjectives are formed from proper nouns. So if you said something like Italian ice is my favorite summer treat, Italian in this case would be a proper adjective because it's describing the word ice, and it comes from the proper noun, describing ethnicity, like Italian, Italy. We also have the example of, Shakespearean plays are my favorite. Shakespeare is a proper noun since he's a person. So that makes it a proper adjective when you use it in a descriptive way. Since these types of adjectives can closely resemble the same form of the words in their noun or verb forms, it's important to see how the word functions within a sentence. If the word describes a noun or a pronoun, you definitely have an adjective. Next up, we have articles, demonstrative adjectives, and indefinite adjectives. Articles are probably the most widely used adjectives, and to determine if you should use a or an, you want to go by the beginning sound of the word it describes. If it's a vowel sound, use an, like an iron needs to be used on the wrinkled shirt. If it's a consonant sound, use a, like a frying pan is needed to make the sandwich. Then we have demonstrative adjectives, and these are used to point out specific persons, places, or things. Since these words can also be used as pronouns, you'll need to be able to tell the difference between the two. Then we also have indefinite adjectives, and these are like demonstrative adjectives in the way that they point out people, places, and things, but they're less specific. And then rounding out the types of adjectives, we have interrogative, which will always modify a noun or pronoun that comes after them. For example, we could have, whose house are we meeting at? And whose in this case would be an interrogative adjective because it's describing the word house, or modifying would be a better term to use. Possessive shows ownership or indicates possession. And what you want to be careful of here is that it should only be used if it's a clear case of ownership. For example, I could say right now, my weather in Scranton is windy, which it is. It's been very windy for the past couple days. But the truth of it is that no one can own the weather, so the better way to phrase it should be the weather in Scranton is windy. So going back to the idea that pronouns and adjectives share a lot of the same words to try to determine if a word is a pronoun or an adjective, you want to keep this in mind. Pronouns are always going to take the place of nouns, and they're going to be able to stand on their own. Adjectives are going to modify or describe nouns or pronouns. So if you take a look at the two sentences I have here, I have, this is my favorite poem. This, it's taking the place of a noun, so we know that that would be used as a pronoun for it. And if we have, this book is my favorite, this is modifying the word book, which is a noun, so we have an adjective. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about how adjectives are used for comparisons. Again, before we move on, we're going to show a brief video that's going to go over this concept.
Hello? I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. Taller, better, faster, stronger. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the happiest season of all. And you can have your dream of the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. Feeling on the road, thinking this is fun. Clouds falling from grace, falling into pieces, tied up on legs. My love is warmer than the warmest sunshine, softer than a sigh. My love is deeper than the deepest ocean, wider than the sky. My love is brighter than the brightest star that shines every night above. And there is nothing in this world that...
Okay, so that gave us a pretty good rundown of the different degrees of comparison. So the next couple slides, we're just going to give a brief recap of them, so that way you'll have them in writing as well. And I hope too many of the songs didn't get stuck in your head. So for the degrees of comparison, the first one we're going to start out with, it's called positive. It's simply just a description. It's going to be of one item or a collective noun. So for the example we have here is the fire is hot. The next one is going to be comparative, and this is going to compare two things. And in most cases, you're going to be able just to add an R or an ER to the end of the word to show the degree of the comparative degree. If a word has two or more syllables, like the video said, you're going to want to use the words more or less to show the comparison. The example we have here is Sam's tea was hotter than his soup. We use the comparative because we're trying to tell the difference between two items here. And then last up we have superlative. It indicates an extreme, and it's used with three or more items. And most of these adjectives are going to end with an ST or an EST. But again, if it's two or more syllables, you're going to need to use least or most, and you're going to see the word the in front of the superlative. So here we have Death Valley is the hottest place in the United States. As always, the English language throws us some curveballs when it comes to exceptions. Some adjectives don't form their degrees of comparison using the rules we just went over. So if you have the word bad, you're not going to say badder and baddest. You'd use worse and worst. Many, like many planes, you could say that there's more planes in the sky than there are on the ground. Or most planes are at the hangar right now. And also there's absolute adjectives that they can't be compared. Something's either round or it isn't. Something's correct or it isn't. So you can't say something is more or least correct than something else. Okay, so that wraps up our lesson on adjectives today. I hope everyone has a great day. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and we'll see you soon.